arm is gone!
Well, here. Use a wiener. Boop.
It's not the same.
Well, here we go up the tube. Fighting crime is what we do. A superhero and a psychic with a plan.
This show is disgusting. End of story. I could end the review right here. Like, what do you even want me to say about this one? Adventures of Kid Danger is a terrible spin-off of a terrible live-action show that no one likes because it came from a man whose heyday was over a decade ago, and who Nickelodeon has since cut all ties with. I reviewed this show back in 2018 when it was new, I guess, and it was terrible then. Guess what? A year's gone by and it's still terrible. I can't think of one positive thing to say about this show. I don't know if I was too easy on this show when I reviewed it, because I was pretty harsh with it, but I'd imagine that's because there was nothing to like about this show. I reviewed the first episode, but let me tell you, that is nowhere near the worst of them. One episode, Texas Wieners, is basically a vehicle for the characters to say wieners as many times as possible. Because, you know, wiener is another word for penis. You may have seen this joke from the comedy stylings of the 7th grader who got held back twice. And that's literally the only joke in that entire episode, again and again and again. Actually, you know what, that might be a little bit harsh. There is another joke. That episode also featured Captain Man, which is a stupid name, by the way, obsessing over Japanese toilets, because they squirt water up your ass. And yes, Captain Man does talk about them as if he gets sexual pleasure from them. This show is a special kind of disgusting. The special kind of disgusting. The kind that Seth MacFarlane wishes he could make any of his shows. It's the kind of disgusting that you'll find in shows like Powerpuff 2016, where just what happens on screen makes you feel gross from watching. It's not so much that it has a boogers or ooze, it feels like you're watching someone's bizarre fetishes that they're far too open about. Made even worse by the fact that they're putting it in a kid's show. It's the kind of cartoon that just makes your skin crawl. If you want to know, the premise of The Adventures of Kid Danger is that Nickelodeon wanted to make a ton of money, but they didn't want to put any actual effort, or maybe even take a chance on a newbie. Or maybe they scared away every bit of talent that has or hasn't worked for them for 20 years by either killing shows right out the gate, like My Life as a Teenage Robot, or by pile driving them forever into the ground, like Fairly Odd Parents or SpongeBob. Seriously, it's like that song. Either Nickelodeon shows are gonna go on forever or they're gonna crash and burn immediately. The show stars Captain Man and his sidekick Kid Danger. In the actual Henry Danger show, Kid Danger had to balance out his home life with the life of being a superhero. This is something that is completely abandoned in the spin-off for just single-minded superhero shenanigans. You could argue that maybe this is like a show within the show of Henry Danger, and they wouldn't want to delve into Henry Danger's secret identity real life, except in this show they do show him as Henry Danger more often than not. So yes, the premise is either pointless or it makes absolutely no sense. The animation is terrible. Like, this is definitely the worst of the 2D Nicktoons, which is weird because it's like the second to last one. Is it the worst out of all of the Nicktoons? That's actually hard to gauge. It's comparing apples to oranges, which is worse, bad 2D or bad 3D animation. I have no idea which could be considered technically better, this show or Monsters vs. Aliens. But it's really a pointless race to the bottom. How the hell do you have animation less fluid than Breadwinners? Yeah, that show looked like limbs jumped from frame to frame. Here, this is just clip art moving around. If you told me that this show is made in Go Animate, I would believe you. In fact, I won't believe you if you tell me that it's not. And the character design? It looks like each character was pulled directly from a kid's website off of the early 2000s. This cat looks like a Neopet. At least Breadwinners had an art direction that was unique to it. I could show you stills from that show, and you'd recognize they came from Breadwinners. I could show you stills from this show, and you probably would think that it came from Pixel Pinky. It's basically moving just the same puppet around. They clearly didn't draw any of these characters more than once. It's kind of like what they did back in the 70s because they only had the budget of a ham sandwich and a Scooby snack. The more that I look into this show, the more that it annoys me. Schneider plastered his name all over the place. Like, every single thing in the show is branded as Schneider's Root Beer or whatever. It's really tacky. I mean, power to him putting his name on his work, but you have to assume that he's proud of whatever this is, considering his name is literally everywhere. You probably can go 2 episodes without finding it somewhere. But the humor is non-existent. I'm not saying that they never try to tell a joke. They do, all too often, but none of them ever land. It's gross out, mixed with people shouting nonsense or acting stupid. It's the same kind of humor that has been strangling Schneider's Bakery for about a decade at this point. Please, somebody call the health inspector on this goddamn bakery. It's clear that somebody died there at this point. The place smells foul, and it seems to be the epicenter for an epidemic of food poisoning. One episode has the professor scientist guy slowly swallowing a cat in what can only be described as a sexual manner, and then spanking himself because this show is fundamentally disgusting and wrong. Please tell me if I'm being puritanical. Is it just me? Because I think that this kind of stuff should not be in a kid's show. Shouldn't be in any show. This is wrong. Sanjay and Craig was gross and disgusting, but this show is wrong. What more can I say about this? The characters? What characters? Captain Man is every other Superman parody. What's the most obvious thing you could do? Oh, I know, make the Muscle Man stupid. Sorry, it was overdone when Drawn Together had done it over a decade ago. Looney Tunes, Ren and Stimpy, all of the other shows ever have already beaten the stupid Muscle Man superhero into the ground long before this show was even a twinkle in Dan Schneider's eyes. And yeah, for the record, Teen Titans Go does the superheroes causing more problems than they solve shtick way better than this. And even they're not good at it. I don't know why hacks keep going into this genre, I guess. Like it's easy or it's unexplored or something, or it's remotely funny. Superhero parodies in cartoons are really hard to pull off because there is some stiff competition. Between Freakazoid and the Tick, you're not gonna win unless you're on your A game. I mean, even beyond that, we have Dave the Barbarian, Duck Dodgers, Darkwing Duck. These are classic names, and you think you can compete with them, that you can hold a candle to them. With this show, it's more than this isn't good. I have to wonder, what's the point of this one? Why did anyone make this? I don't think money is the answer for once. After all, this series was buried in less than a year, and I highly doubt that it turned a profit, because animation, even animation this cheap, is a lot more expensive than the live action show that outlasted this one. I guess I could get why someone might have thought that this would have been a good idea at one point. Prime Dan Schneider, probably could have done some pretty cool things with an animated series. I could see shows like Amanda Show and Drake and Josh and even iCarly being boxed in by being live action. I mean, how much more could they have added to, say, the helicopter episode of Drake and Josh? And being a cartoon could easily add to the antics of iCarly. But let's be real here. We don't have Prime Schneider, and we're never going to have Prime Schneider again. At least not in the positive sense. So, where is this one on the whole list? That's a good question. Does it beat Bunsen? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm legitimately going to have to think about that one. I guess the better question is, does this compete with Sanjay and Craig? I mean, Sanjay and Craig did a lot of disgusting things that made your skin crawl, but that was more out of incompetence. They just didn't know any better. I'm not saying that the people behind this show knew what they were doing. It just feels like the people behind this show really knew what they were doing. And every single episode just makes me feel sick to my stomach in ways that most cartoons don't. One season for this show was far too much for this. And if it doesn't make my top 10 worst cartoons of the 2010s list, it's because I never want to watch this shit again. I have a burning desire to never watch this one again. And believe me, no human being ever should. Stay away from the show if you value anything about yourself. It is one of the bottom of the barrel Nicktoons. And if this show made you abandon the network completely, I understand. Believe me, if this was somewhere in the middle, I would probably have stopped this marathon. The only reason that I'm continuing is because we only have 2 shows to go.
Next up.